Alright guys, Hayzink here, welcome back to the channel. So this video is a little bit different. I'm addressing something that a lot of people have been talking about. So understandably, a lot of people are worried about the potential for Street Fighter Duel to wrap up early, so to speak, and to have an early end of service. Now, each day we see more people on our friends list not logging in, so it's understandable how people are starting to think this. And there's also videos popping up from content creators saying things like they're going to be covering the game less. And every month there's people who are wishing for the game to shut down. They love to tell players how much lower the revenue is this month than the previous month. So does this mean that Street Fighter Duel is destined to not make it past the year mark? Well, before we answer that question, it's important to take a few things into consideration. I'm sure that most of you are aware by now the gacha market has what I'm going to refer to as red flag publishers. You know the ones. You'll see a game you like, it's coming to global, you'll post somewhere on a Reddit or in a comment section that, oh, I can't wait to play this game, and then very quickly, almost as soon as you've posted it, someone will pipe up saying, avoid that game, it's published by Nexon. Now, I used Nexon as an example, but I could have just as easily used Crunchyroll, because as many people will tell you, Crunchyroll themselves have an absolute back catalogue of games that have shut down early under the stewardship of Crunchy. So let's talk about Crunchy, as ultimately they're the ones that people watching this video are going to care about. Crunchy are basically what I've jokingly called dropshippers of gacha games in the past. Now, it was a joke, but ultimately the facts are true. They import a game from a foreign market, usually Japan or China, and they'll translate it and sell it to a global marketplace. They're not the only ones that do this. There are other publishers who use this exact same model to bring new games to the global market. In fact, the game that I previously did that most people probably know me for, Disgaea, was brought to global in this way by Bolt Trend. Now, not only is there a lot of publishers releasing games in this way, they all actually have a back catalogue of closed games to call their own. So it's not unique to Crunchyroll, it is something that you will find littered throughout the marketplace. Now, why is this? Well, ultimately there's a few reasons. First and foremost, financials. If you look at the marketplace, you'll notice a trend with the longest running mobile games. Things like Dokkan Battle has been going 8 years, 7 years and a bit on global. Grand Cross has been running for years. Netmarble deal with the IP in all the territories that it's published. You've got things like AFK Arena, which is over 4 years old. Lilith both publish and own the IP for that. Even things like Clash of Clans and Simpsons Tapped Out, while they're not gacha games, they're obviously heavily monetized mobile games. They're all either self-owned IP or they're at least self-published by the same developer. Usually this is because they've got confidence the product will sell in the Western market. The reason they have a longer lifespan is due to the fact that they've got less overheads due to not having to split revenue with the original publisher. Now, if we look at all these games that close early, they tend to be the other type. They tend to be licensed games that exist in another market and have another company handling the foreign translation. Quite often, they come out a year, maybe 2 years after the home version was released. When changes are needed, all the parties have to agree, or in some cases, one party gets to pull all the strings with that game. Ideas that the paying company, the importer, had when the deal was signed maybe didn't pan out, so when it comes to renewal time, they simply walk away from the deal. This can be for financial reasons, it can be due to poor working relationships, it could also be due to wanting to refocus efforts into something new, but almost inevitably it happens to all of the games that have this sort of republishing deal in place. You simply need to look at the marketplace to see that self-owned, self-published IPs are the ones that tend to last longest in the global marketplace. The only exceptions to this rule are Western developed games of Western IPs. I'm not entirely sure of the reason for this, but it could simply be a home market kind of thing where they don't want to damage the brand in its own home market. Like, as an example, there is a game that I used to play, The Walking Dead Road to Survival. Now, I'm sure most of you are well aware by now that there was a huge bubble surrounding The Walking Dead. Everything about The Walking Dead was absolutely popping off, people couldn't get enough of it. That has well and truly burst now, that ship has sailed, and The Walking Dead isn't the IP that it once was. However, The Walking Dead Road to Survival is still going despite not having a huge player base. And it's being developed by Scopely, who are actually a company that, on the surface, a lot of people do not think great things of. They have a poor reputation in some regards. However, despite people liking to throw shade at Scopely, 7 years later, they're still pushing out content for that game, and they're still keeping their player base engaged, showing that they don't simply want to move on to the next thing that's going to pull them in more money. They continue to look after the players who've put money into the game year after year, and they're keeping that game going. So, if we swing back round to the opening question, will Street Fighter Duel have early end of service? Absolutely. The answer is yes, it will have early end of service. It's almost inevitable based on the market and clearly viewable history of games that are published in this format. They all close ahead of their time, and most of them do so while still actually having content available to push out, and some of them even close down globally while the foreign version, whether it be Chinese, whether it be Japanese, still continues to go and still continues to push out new content. Here's looking at you, the Sky RPG. The game shut down, it still had more than 2 years of available content, but either due to poor management on the global side by Bolt Trend, or simply not being able to renegotiate a decent deal when it came back up for renewal, that game was shut down. Maybe I had a hand in that, I don't know, but that game shut down early, and it still had a lot to give to players, but unfortunately it's what happens to games like this. So, when you're looking for a gacha, and you want a bit of peace of mind to know that the game that you're playing is a good shot at surviving, you might want to steer clear of those republished type games, and instead either look for an original IP, or at least games that are both developed and published by the same company, because market trends tell us that those games have the best chance of survival. Now, will Street Fighter last 2 years? Personally, I don't think so. As the devs have shown, they're pretty unwilling to change what they do for the global market, and personally, if I was Crunchy or even A+, when it comes time to renew, I don't think I would want to work with Topjoy anymore, based on the fact that up to this point they've been unwilling to deviate from whatever their plans for global actually are, despite those things not actually working in a global marketplace. So, I mean, to be completely honest, it's the nature of the business, and the only way it's going to stop happening like this is if we as players stop playing these republished games in the first place. Because at the end of the day, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen when it comes to these republished games, these licensed games shutting down early. I never set out to make you feel bad in this video, I never set out to make you feel like it's all doom and gloom, the game's going to shut down. The game's always going to shut down. Again, it's inevitable. However, if we get 2 years out of it, I would probably take this hat and eat it, because I think there's absolutely no chance of that happening. Hopefully we make it past a year, but it's entirely up to you guys what you decide to do with this information. I just feel like maybe in future it's better to look for self-owned, self-published games to play. Anyway guys, I've been Hayzink. Catchy.